AskReddit. Redditors who have lawfully killed someone, what's your story? My middle daughter's nutcase ex-boyfriend smashed the glass out of our dining room slider while we were eating supper. He burst in wielding a single bit axe. My kids fled while I attempted to reason with him. Then I fled once I realized there was no reasoning with him. He followed me. I tossed a cushion from the living room sofa at him, then retreated to my bedroom. He followed me and broke down the door. I blew him apart with my little coach gun. Both barrels. The powers that be charged it off as justifiable homicide. My girls and I spent 6 weeks in a cheap motel until we found a different house to rent. I'd been in Iraq for almost 5 months and hadn't shot anyone up close. During a convoy from Cobb's Beach at a fob danger we had to take a route that was far more dangerous than our usual route. While driving along a very skinny street I was scanning rooftops, alleys, vehicles, windows, etc. As we approached an alley on the right I saw some motion out of the corner of my eye. I swung my weapon around and saw an enemy combatant taking an EW/an RPG on his shoulder and I fired immediately. The weapon I was using was not intended for anti-personnel usage, so at close range, and in the extremely heightened panic and fear state I was in I fired more rounds than necessary, and I tore that enemy combatant literally to shreds. It's been 10 years since I took my first life and it still haunts my dreams, 3, 4 sometimes 5 nights a week. 3 years ago I got in a car accident with Insuv. Both at fault. Guy has a family in the car and comes out screaming saying I tried to kill his family. I tell him I'm calling the cops and he says no, then gets angry when I pull out my phone. He walks to his SUV and comes back with a pistol. I drop the phone and tell him to calm down. He keeps walking towards me. I walk to my driver's side where I keep a Glock 26 and defended myself. There was a traffic camera which recorded the entire incident, and I did not face any charges. His family is still trying to sue in civil. Edit. A lot of people seem to be asking why he was so angry and pulled out a gun. He had warrants for his arrest, so when I told him I was going to call the cops he knew if they came he was going to jail. He died very graphically screaming and shouting. His family began shouting at me too. The family is trying to sue because they claim I was the aggressor and the traffic camera does not have any audio. Other witnesses have all confirmed what I have said to be true. I posted this on my previous Reddit account about 11 months ago. This was about 2004 to 2006. I don't remember the exact year anymore. I killed a guy that tried to break into my apartment because he was wanting his wife that he had just beat the shit out of 2 AM. I hear them arguing. I could hear it through my bathroom wall. I shut my bathroom then bedroom to drown it out. 2:15 AM. She's banging on my door, broken nose, left eye swollen, and limping from tripping and falling to get out of the apartment. Told her to go to the bathroom, clean herself up, then hide in my bedroom. Husband comes out of the apartment, yelling her name, and he notices her blood trail to my apartment. Starts banging on my door, yelling to let him in. I warned him 3 times that he doesn't stop, I will kill you. He kicks the lock on the door. Door swings open, and I swing my baseball bat down onto his head. He falls to the ground stunned. He lands stomach first, and I see a handgun tucked into the back of his shirt. I grab it, throw it into my apartment, and warned him 1 more time. He got up, came at me. I slammed my bat into his stomach, then slammed my bat over his head 1 last time which caved his skull in. I knew from the blood spatter from when I hit, he was dead. Thankfully, the neighbors had called the police when it started, and the second he fell to the ground dead, police had made it to the top of the steps. It never affected me as much as it should have. I reacted the best way I could for the situation I was in. I don't think about what I did anymore. I can't fix the past. Throw away for this one. A guy had taken serious issue with me earlier that year, 2010, over hooking up with his ex-girlfriend and then dating her after. Some threatening Facebook messages was the only real interaction I had with him up until the night it happened. Fast forward a few months, I was at a bar with friends. He keeps trying to start problems outside when we were smoking. I keep backing away with no one to fight this guy, telling him repeatedly that I don't want to fight you. He swings and hits me, and my reaction was to punch him in the throat, and I really don't know why. I guess the face just seemed like it would break my hand, as I had never actually punched somebody before. Well, he fell back and hit his head on a curb and died later in hospital from the head injury. Police never laid charges as there was a camera on the parking lot. He was clearly the aggressor. I feel bad he died, wish he didn't, but I just kind of tell myself that he did it to himself. Just very unfortunate it happened the way it did. I worked as a bouncer in California for 5 years while I went to college. There were lots of fights and squabbles, but they usually ended with no one getting hurt, with a few exceptions. One in particular was a fellow who ran in, jumped over the bar, and started throwing the bottles everywhere. Then he lit a match and threw it on the ground. Fire didn't spread or do anything because it missed the alcohol. But I was grabbing him and hauling him back over the bar to restrain him while they called the cops. He slashed me across my neck, clavicle, and chest with a switchblade, and when I grabbed his arms to protect my face, he still cut my face 6 more times, 96 stitches. I was on my own. Just some kids in the bar and a female bartender, so I just pushed his knife back into his throat while he kept trying to slash at my face, snapping his wrist in half in the process. I wasn't even trying to kill or do any of that. I was just scared shitless I was going to die defending a bar. Even worse was, while I was trying to stop his bleeding, he was still swinging at me. He was definitely on some uppers. My guilt is that, even though I was bigger and more experienced, I wasn't able to just solve the problem without any serious injuries. So I killed somebody. With 9 witnesses, cameras, and 1 phone video, there was nothing criminal. But I can't touch someone's arms or hands without feeling like I'll snap their wrist in half backwards. It was sickening. Of course I quit the next day. He was the ex-boyfriend of another bartender who wasn't even there that day. I think he might have killed the bartender that was there though, so I'm glad I was there. 2012. I had been doing security for about 5 months. I worked at a shithole apartment complex, which was an unarmed property. But after 2 drive-bys, I requested from the property management and my company to allow me to carry while I was there. I had my armed guard card, so it was legal. 3 days after I got permission to carry, I had some domestic abuse issues going on and had cops on scene. After everyone cleared out, I went back to my patrols. I was standing at an apartment building on the edge of the street. While I had my head down writing out my report, I felt a sharp pain in my back. I stood straight up, and next thing I know, someone has their arm around my neck in a headlock. He managed to get another stab into my stomach just under my vest. I grabbed for my firearm, pushed up in an attempt to break the hold, which was ineffective. I could feel him trying to stab, but only meeting my vest. I put my gun to the bottom of his head and pulled the trigger. He let go of his grip, and I turned around. His face was completely fucked. The angle of the gun made the bullet come out of his nose region. His jaw was flash burnt to absolute shit and just hanging like a zombie. I put 2 more into his chest when he finally fell. PCP is one hell of a drug, kids. One of the reporting officers for the domestic abuse was parked up the street. He saw the whole thing, but didn't have time to warn me because he said the druggie was running towards me, and since I was near a busy street, I couldn't hear him coming. I was not guilty. The guy had 2 warrants and a long list of previous criminal history from assault to grand theft auto. I haven't really thought about it since it happened. Posting this on a throwaway. Few years ago I was walking home at night after a pub shift and decided to cut down a alleyway to save some time. It was freezing that night and I just wanted to be warm when I got jumped by two guys. I got hit in the back of the head by a bit of wood and went straight down. Come to feel one of the guys trying to pull my skirt and tights off. I tried fighting, but seeing as he was a lot bigger than me, I really struggled. I grabbed around and grabbed a beer bottle and smashed it in his face. Long story short, he bled out and died. His friend ran off and left him. Someone called the police, found me crying, him dead. I was arrested, questioned, soon become very apparent what happened. I wasn't never charged, all in self-defense. They never found the second guy, and to this day still think about the guy who I killed. Throwaway for privacy. I was the chief pilot for the owners of a large company in Florida. I was flying long hours because one of the other pilots took vacation because his wife was having a baby. At the last stop, I rented a car from the FBO and stopped for some dinner with my coworker. After leaving the restaurant, my rental car's door was open, though I had locked it before entering the restaurant. I ran up to see what was going on and there was a man going through my luggage in the back seat. The very first thing I said was that I was calling the cops. This caught him off guard because he didn't know I was there. He leaped out of the car and said if I pulled out my phone, he would kill me, all the while he was pulling out a .38 special and held it down, waiting for me to react. The customers on the patio had noticed what was going on and called the police without either of our knowledge. We both stood in silence as we both realized we were in a fucked situation. He said give me the keys. I refused and he started to move his arm. Before he could even lift his arm all the way to aim at me, I managed to remove my Springfield XD9 from my Remora holster, tucked into my slacks, and fired 3 shots, all center mass. He fell back, and I took cover behind the car, pulling my coworker who had watched the whole thing unfold. The officers arrived about 4 minutes later, and detained me while they investigated. The man died 3 minutes after the police arrived. A man took cell phone video from the patio, and it was used in the case. I was 26. This was last year. It haunts me to this day and I will never forget it. I was cleared about 6 hours later and returned home following the incident. I was 23 at the time, living alone in a new city. Someone broke into my apartment, so I went into the bedroom quietly from the bathroom and grabbed my Mosin, only gun I had. My phone was in the living room, so I just sat quietly and hoped they would leave. Well, they didn't. The person opened the bedroom door. They had a large sack and a knife, likely just a burglar. I warned them to leave, but they didn't. I warned them again, and they entered the room. I warned them a third time, and they said the only reason someone with a gun warned someone else instead of shooting is they have no bullets. They were wrong. I put a round into the right torso. A 7.62x54 round to the upper torso from 10 feet away is not really something you're going to survive. But it isn't like the movies or games. You don't die instantly. There's the writhing, the twitching, the gurgling, lungs punctured, the bleeding, the hands grabbing at the wound. It takes a few minutes before it all stops, then it's just stillness. I guess maybe, if it had been the left heart, they would have died faster. Instead I was told they died of blood loss and shock, choking on their own blood. They were dead before the cops or ambulance showed up. I faced no charges. I was in a no duty to retreat state, and they had warrants out for the person's arrest on multiple armed robbery charges.